So we've had a couple technical difficulties today, but so thanks for joining us just a few minutes late. Hi, I'm Jason Buffington with Veeam. Good morning for me. Good afternoon to some of my colleagues. And Karinne, is it good evening for you yet? Where are you at this week?
I'm in Helsinki, Finland, so I would say 7 o'clock is evening for me.
All right. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening for everyone who's joining us. We are so excited to be talking about the VeeamON Resiliency Summit. It is coming up like in T minus 21 hours or some crazy number like that. But we wanted to go ahead and Karinne and I kind of got a look at the slides a little bit early and grabbed a couple of our favorites. And so we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about the things that are interesting to each of us. And actually, one of the things that's interesting to us is, where are you from? So one of our goals always is to bring up the map and then talk about what parts of the world that we're turning green. To get us started, I hail from the great state of Texas. Our production is coming out of Georgia. Social media is also out of Texas, I should mention. The rest of production is coming out of Ohio. And then if you go look over on in the old country, look at that. Finland, all green, just because of Karinne. So, way to represent. You are now currently speaking on behalf of an entire continent, and I just think that's super cool. But let's see if we can turn some other parts of the world green. But while we do that, though, so please pile on LinkedIn, Facebook, 210 Cups and a String, Smoke Signals, whatever you're doing, let us know where you are joining from. And in the meantime, we're going to remind you about a couple of the reasons why you should be as excited about the VeeamON Resiliency Summit as we are. For the last couple of years, we've been talking about that, ransomware is a disaster. We've been talking about you can't not have an IT conversation in 2023 that doesn't mention ransomware prevention, preparedness, and mitigation along the way. Brent, I stole a couple of these data points from a couple of our senior execs. They'll be having some keynote time tomorrow, but they were just too good to start off with. And let's start with the one on the left, because I think this kind of frames up the conversation. 85% of organizations said that in 2022, they got hit at least one time, which is crazy to me because the vast majority of them were saying two, three. Some of them actually, that little wedge that's missing that said none, more organizations got hit quarterly than didn't get hit at all. That's an amazing topic overall. Ren, I know this is an area that you spend a little bit of time on. What are you hearing from a customer perspective? I mean, does this ring true to what's going on in the field?
I don't think I can walk into a security conversation or into a word without hearing the R word. How can you help us protect against ransomware? What kind of resiliency can you offer? And it's almost become like a buzzword in the product marketing side, but it's so real and so scary, we can't let it cross that line. 85%. Just let that sink in for a second. If you know 10 people, almost 8 to 9 of those people have been hit by a ransomware attack. That is crazy. And the data lost. And you have some statistics on how much data has been lost per incident at these organizations.
Yeah, it's upwards of 40%. And I think Anand's going to talk about that a little bit, and Danny's going to talk about, I mean, we're not talking about a little thing here, right? So, let's use your analogy for a second. To keep the math clean, instead of 10 people, let's call it 20. If there are 20 people in a room, in fact, I'm going to be going to a room that's got about 20 folks later this afternoon. There are 20 people in a room. 17 of them will say they got hit at least once. And I'm going to tell you, of the 3 people that said they didn't, at least one of them was probably let's use a different kind of virus, an asymptomatic carrier. They got hit, they just don't know it. And then there's 1 or 2 that actually dodged that bullet along the way. So let's look on the right-hand side, though, because some of the folks are going to be talking about this one as well. We talk a lot about preventing. Technically, that's not what backup does, right? So there's prevention, and then there's when everything goes bad. If you're going to survive, you have to have remediation. And unfortunately, The bad actor wants to remove your ability to remediate, to save yourself. And in 93% of cases, 93% of the time, they target the backup server so you can't save yourself. Karinne, that's insane, scary, and admittedly kind of smart and clever.
Smart, clever, and job security, if we're talking about that. It's really a whole change, I think, in the perception of ransomware and cyber attacks out there in the industry. It's not one isolated group. It is not a group of hackers or even script kiddies that are doing some damage to your organization. This has become a full-blown enterprise. Attackers don't even come in with the intention initially to wreck your data as soon as possible, get out, get their money. What they do is reconnaissance. They take all of the data from your infrastructure. They say, what products do you have? What physical hardware do you have? Okay, now we're going to make that into this nice little package and sell it by the highest bidder and then the second highest bidder so many weeks later. So this is why you're getting continuously attacked if you're not modifying your strategy, having a solid build of resiliency. Your backups are going to be wiped out because they already know what kind of backups you have, no matter who your vendor is.
Yeah. Absolutely. Hey, so we've been hearing that the map is starting to blow up a little bit. So let's go ahead and check the map really quick, and then we can kind of get into some of the our favorite slides that we borrowed from. I almost feel like a hacker, right? I've been in that environment, in that shared folder. I exfiltrated a little bit of data in some slides. Don't tell the marketing team. All right, but let's go ahead and take a look at the map. We'll start off in the U.S. Looks like we got Michigan in the house, which I'm sure always makes the folks from Ohio happy. We've got the North Carolinas in, California is representing today. So a hearty good morning to y'all out on the West Coast. Wow.
We're just lighting up Europe. People, they're here with me. We're all here.
It's because of you. I am sure that's it. It's like, hey, if Ren's over there, then I guess this is one we should watch. But yeah, so we got Romania in the house, and Germany, and I think that's Bulgaria. Poland's in, Switzerland's in. Been there a couple times. I recommend the chocolate. Slovakia, Austria, UK. Got some friends over there. That's cool. Norway, Netherlands, France, and Turkey. Holy cow! I think there's more of Europe than not. So way to represent this morning, y'all. We also got Egypt. We got South Africa. Some of my favorite food is down in Cape Town. And then we got Armenia representing, and India. So just keep turning the world green, y'all. Thank you so much for chiming in, especially with so many people. This is their evening time, so thank you for that. All right, Ren, we talked about the lurking around kind of thing. And, typically when Veeam talks about what we do from a Veeam data platform perspective, and I know this is the version that I think that our CTO, Danny Allen's going to be talking to. I actually like the next version of the slide a little better because while everyone wants to talk about all the new stuff that's out there in clouds, let's not forget, virtualization is still in every major environment. Physical servers are still in every major environment. Apps like Oracle and SQL and NAS and all the other platforms that are out there, this is all part of that attack surface that those bad actors you were mentioning are lurking around trying to find out what hasn't been patched, what's still using default passwords, right? I mean, the attack surface just keeps getting broader out there, and that's kind of scary.
That is tremendously scary. And having a single platform to be able to protect it all, I think, is the highlighting security point at our summit, along with all of the great features that are coming down the line. We're able to cover that entire platform and have the extended platforms from your on-premises infrastructure and restore across the board. It doesn't matter where you need the data to go to.
Yeah. Now, speaking of features, certainly anytime that we do a Veeam event, one of the things that everyone's always looking for are updates on when's the next stuff coming. Now, I forgot to ask Danny if we're allowed to use this slide, so I just kind of redacted a few pieces of it. But yeah, he's got some data that I couldn't see all the pieces of, as far as talking about not just the Veeam data platform, but also what's happening in our cloud products, what's happening in Salesforce, and our new backup backup as a service for 365 and Kasten. And notice on here, there's one line that's completely wiped out because I'm trying not to get fired. All right. That's as much as you're going to get for that. You're going to have to tune into Danny's session to watch for that part. Let's talk about some of our favorites. And I think easily the session I was most looking forward to for VORs for tomorrow is the security deep dive session. And on the right is some data that I pulled from the last data protection trends report that looks at what customers are asking for. Take a look at those blue wedges. When organizations were asked what most defines a modern data protection solution, 14%, so 1 in 7 say that backup has to integrate with cyber. Another 11% say it has to consistently protect IaaS and SaaS, right? So we just talked about that big attack surface. You better have copies of all of it. And then another 10% said, okay, we have to be able to automate for recoveries, which again, these are all parts of the secret sauce of what happens to prepare for or remediate against cyber events. And what is that? 14, 25, 35. So for 1 in 3 organizations, the most important thing is what we're going to cover tomorrow. And that includes hardening the backup infrastructure, hardening the repositories, how backup can be a better citizen in detection technologies. Ren, I don't know if you got a chance to preview any of these, but there's some exciting stuff that's going to get covered.
There is some really exciting stuff, and I think it's really a testament from your numbers to the features that we're putting out. There's always been a direct alignment from what Veeam puts out vNext and what our customers have been asking for months prior. It's a continuous cycle, and I swear every time we get a new feature, the next webinar I'm on is like, hey, what are you going to include this now? And guess what? Next year, next release, whatever it might be in that cycle.
Well, and that's one of the reasons why we do all this research, right? So the goal is always to try to stay ahead of what is it that customers are thinking about, not deployed and wondering why they can't protect. What are they thinking about so that every year we can be making sure that we're building ahead of where the mainstream market is going. That being said, though, I think some of the best conversations I've had since I've been with Veeam is when we get to have those early conversations with our customers and our partners, and they're talking about what they're thinking about, and we talk about what we're thinking about, and often that can help inform what is it we should be building. And we've been hearing about certainly ransomware for so many years, and this is a testament to what we're staying up with or trying to build ahead for. Ren, this was one that you grabbed from some folks. I'm going to go ahead and build it out. I noticed that you got rid of all the really cool text that was underneath what each one of these. But what was it that stood out for you in this session deck?
So with this entire Resiliency Summit, we didn't just take Veeam voice. We didn't go to our C-suite. We also brought in some outside voice. And that's what made me so excited about this slide. It's actually Brian Seeley. He's a world-renowned hacker and a U.S. Marine. He came on, did an interview with us, and had the top 5 takeaways for the cyber attacks. And I really recommend, if you tune in for nothing else, come see this world-renowned hacker tell us what we should be concerned about and see how it aligns to what we're producing into our platform.
All right. And you know what? Actually, there's one more click on here, and it basically just says, hey, you should go and do a follow-up conversation and download that. Now, I'm pretty sure that if you're watching this live stream live, that's going to take you to a registration page. We're not leaking anything yet. Hopefully, if that's not true, then this is Ren's slide. She pulled it. I had nothing to do with it.
It's a registration page, and you can register so you don't miss out. Plus, it gives you some links that you can do some reading up, including your numbers, Jason.
I love that. All right. I didn't mean to throw you under the bus there. Hey, let's talk about one of our dear friends, Emily, and what she's going to be bringing to the party. What did you take away from her deck?
So I know you were super excited about the security session, but what's near and dear to my heart is actually the Microsoft 365 environment. And this is a really well-rounded piece with a bonus section on tips you can take away to make your environment more secure today than it was yesterday. And it's not just about Veeam-centric things. It's actually about hardening your infrastructure and really good tips when dealing in that hybrid, icky, gooey scenario that we're all dealing with anymore. Edge networking
Love
expanded.
that. Yeah. One of my favorite things about any time I get a chance to listen to one of Emily's sessions is she comes from the SE world. She comes from that front line and always tends to bring those stories of, this customer or that customer and how they're doing it. I always learn when we hear from outside experts, we hear from those frontliners as well. It's one of the reasons why that I love hanging out with you, is because of all the stuff that you brought from before you joined the CTO's team.
We
So,
also have some sneak peeks at Sirius, Sirius by Veeam, the
all
backup
right.
as a service. So make sure you tune in all the way to the end of that session.
Yeah, I can't imagine anyone not being like, if you're going to hit two things. Okay, well, wait. So there's Danny's updates on the product. There's a world-renowned hacker. There's live insights from the front line, and then there's also our own BAS solution in Cirrus. I'm not sure I can come up with a favorite out of them as a must-see out of just those four. They might all be must-sees. Let's talk about some of the other sessions that are also going to maybe be must see as well. Salesforce. So you're usually a 365 lady, but tell me what did you see here? Because this seems to be like everywhere in people's discussions.
So Salesforce is one of our newest products that we have out on the line, and probably one of our most requested products in history, which is how it became our vNext feature and integration. But one of the things that we're running into is just educating the field about what it means to actually protect this environment, helping them protect this environment. And one of our colleagues, he is mostly in charge of this, but as an entire team, we're super excited about the updates coming down.
So
which you can sneak peek at.
You should absolutely sneak peek this. One of the things that I think a lot of folks misunderstand is that when data is cloud hosted, especially when it's SaaS, there's this assumption that just because the service is durable, that means that you don't have to back it up. And that is, and I've known forever that is a flawed perspective. But one of the things I think is really interesting is Salesforce now has a little widget that'll export your data for you as a small backup utility. And Microsoft announced a little utility for backing up 365. And I think of those much like I think about the Windows NT backup utility or the backup applet, which is on your desktop. I think about it like RMAN for Oracle or snapshotting was inside of NetApp. And I don't know how many point products that you want to use for each of those pieces along the way, but the fact that both Salesforce and Microsoft both have released a utility or a widget to do some kind of backup kind of tells you, no, you still need backup, even for your SaaS-based applications, which I just think is super interesting. One of the other things that I think a lot of folks misunderstand is when we look at things like containers. So it would be easy to assume that it wasn't that many years ago that folks were saying that, hey, micro serverless architectures, they're stateless, there's no real data there. Let's do some myth busting here. Here's one of the other slides from our Caston session.
So I feel like containers have a lot of the conversations that I have every day about the software as a service. And really, resiliency is all about creating layers. And whether you think that data is important, it's likely important. You have to really dig in sometimes because, oh, I run a stateless infrastructure. What are you backing up? Well, how about that underlying data and those databases that are keeping those transaction consistency, your RP system, whatever might be running on this containerized system? They're not just going to attack those stateless running instances. They're going to attack the core of the data because, as we mentioned earlier, ransomware and cyber attacks are getting smarter, more sophisticated. They know the environment better than you do most of the time.
Yeah. And I guess if we were to boil it down between what we just talked about in Salesforce and the session 365 and now on containers, right, you still got to back up the clouds, right? I'm going to remind folks, though, you still got to back up the data centers too, right? So, I mean, that attack surface is wide, and anything that your users can get to in data, the bad guys can get to also. right? And so that's why we're talking about this as an event. Hey, let's go to the map one more time because I've been hearing that parts of the world are continuing to turn green. So that's awesome. So if we go back and check out, got a couple more states in the U.S. that have lit up. Looks like Tennessee is representing. And Illinois, I got some family in Chicago. I've been meaning to go up and see them. Florida, more on that in just a few minutes, maybe. And then let's take a look at, is that El Salvador on the bottom edge? I think that's El Salvador that's down there. Let's see if we go to the old countries. What we got? So we got Denmark is representing. So very nice. You could literally like go from the south of Spain all the way up, and with a boat ride, go all the way up into the top of the Nordics. That's kind of cool, actually. Let's see. And so, of course, Spain's in the house as well. Brazil, love Brazil. Great food, good humans, and it turns such a big chunk of the map green every time they represent on our call. So 3 great reasons to love Brazil. Also in the house, we got Lebanon and Cambodia. So thank you all for joining, and hopefully all of you and everyone else is going to be signing up for the VeeamON Resiliency Summit. Let's give the folks at home one more reason why they should make sure they tune in for the VeeamON Resiliency Summit. So usually every year, the last thing we do on the last slide of VeeamON is tell you when the next VeeamON, where and when. Now, this has been very cleverly redacted by someone in creative or somewhere, but what we know we're going to talk about tomorrow is the location and the date. And all I can really make out is it looks like I'm hoping that's sand and maybe water and blue skies, which at least as an American, that means it's not going to be in Kansas or Nebraska. So I'm hoping for some place that has water. That's all I get from that. I don't know, Rin, if there's any other clever insights you can figure out from that depiction.
Well, there's definitely some buildings. It looks very warm. I'm excited for the change in the season. I'm all the way up in Finland. It's a little chilly, so I'm looking forward to warm and thawing.
Buildings are good, right? So, otherwise everyone's tenting. Or open air, and admittedly, if it's warm, maybe you don't care as much as I do. But in Texas, we are a big fan of those air conditioners, and so if you're going to have sand, you probably ought to have AC or at least some shade along the way. All right, so Ren, it is 2 minutes left. Hopefully, folks can, I guess, just Google VeeamON Resiliency Summit and find a link and sign up for tomorrow. There's a lot of stuff that really ought to be must-see TV that folks should be watching for tomorrow. Rin, final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking for the link, it's also at the top at VeeamON.com, and I'm sure our back-end team can get that posted in the chat for posts for you guys. The link on the previous slide also would have signed you up for the Resiliency Summit. There's plenty of ways to get registered and tons of content you'll be missing out on if you don't get registered.
Love it. All right. That's all we have for today. Sign up for tomorrow. I'm not even sure if we're doing in fact, I know we're not doing a Tuesday Industry Insights, and I don't think we're doing a Tech Bites because we're all trying to get ready for VORs, and frankly, you should be too. Thanks for watching the special installment. Have a great day.